Good evening, one and all, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you might be. I'm Casual Spaceman, your host, and welcome to the channel. Welcome to another launch. Second of two launches today, unusually. Earlier on today, we had the Ariane 5 rocket launch to satellite successfully, so that all went quite well. So this one is SpaceX Falcon 9 launch of another satellite, communications satellite for the continent of Africa, mostly for an Israeli customer. Not a whole lot to say about this one. Can I just check all the sound okay? Can you all hear me? Oh, Emily Rose says yes, loud and clear. Thank you, Emily. That's my daughter in the chat as well. Good sound. Hello, thank you very much. That's great. I just wanted to double check. I was wittering on and not checking that we had the sound. Okay. So yeah, this is a communications satellite, AMOS-17 it's called, hence the name AMOS-17, and it's going to be providing communications or improved communications for the continent of Africa. All kinds of communications really, all different kinds. Okay, so the first stage fuel, kerosene and liquid oxygen is already loaded. All the second stage of, oh, let me just turn down this other stream here, sorry. The second stage of the Falcon 9 liquid oxygen is already loading. That's underway at the moment, and shortly will be the chill of the engines prior to launch. They need to be chilled, otherwise it causes all sorts of problems, and things can tend to go boom if they don't. Okay. So that's really all I can say about this one. If I'm afraid to say, if you're expecting to see the first stage land again, I'm sorry to say, you're going to be disappointed. That's not going to be happening this one. They're not going to recover this stage. Something to do with the amount of fuel. Wasn't able to actually come back to the Cape and re-land again. Not quite sure why they couldn't land on the remote barge as they do at sea. I'm not quite sure the reasons for that. I haven't really looked into the reasons so far, but I can always let you know in the future. So if you're expecting that, sorry guys, not going to see that, but you should see a good launch anyway. Things are looking good. The weather's cleared up a little bit. Everything, all the systems on the spacecraft are looking good. On the rocket, all looking good. So at the moment, we are still a go for a launch at 23 minutes past the hour. So we are looking good for that at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check to see whether SpaceX are up and running on their broadcast. Not quite. So let's just have a look. Who have we got in the chat? We have got Harry Warp. This is a connector drive engine. I'm not entirely sure, Harry Warp. I'll bow to your superior knowledge if that's the type of engine it is. I don't honestly know. Peter G, Dartman, how you doing, buddy? NANA, Mark Caesar, Emily LaRose. She's my daughter watching. Hi, Emily. Love you. C4, hi Dan. Startman, I've already mentioned there. Here we got Stuck in Florida. Good to see you again, buddy. He's been keeping an eye on the weather for me. Last weather report, he says everything is moving southeast. He's not too far away from the Cape. Everything's moving southeast. It was just a little slow that blew up, but it was dissipated away. The only thing is the thunderstorm that went across me but it's starting to dissipate. That's good. Yeah, there was a thunder warning earlier on as well, which was make things look a bit dodgy. And we got Cliff Burham and Jen Morgan. She was here just a little while ago. I don't know if she's returned just yet, but good to see you. Thank you very, very much for coming to watch this launch. And let's see how SpaceX are doing at the moment. And what I'll do is get any updates and things like that. Okay, they're broadcasting. I'm just going to check for any updates to see if there's anything changed with SpaceX. Twitter's always a good one to see because they update pretty regularly. But no, it's still looking good. They tweeted about 15 minutes ago, 30 minutes until Falcon 9 launch of AMOS-17. So yeah, it's still looking good as far as we know so far. But things can change. A couple of weeks ago, we had a launch that was actually scrubbed with T-minus 30 seconds due to weather. Okay, so it could change. We just never know. That's the great thing about launches, and I think the unexpected could always happen. So we really don't know. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to SpaceX and their stream. And what also I'm going to do is at the top of the screen, you should see a black bar with my logo. And what I'll do is I'm going to post up some pointers as to each stage that's actually happening and what's happening at the key events, things like that. So look out for those. So just bear with me for a second. I'll set everything up and we'll hand over to SpaceX. So I'm just trying to get into full screen, but it doesn't seem to want to play ball. Here we go. Okay, I hope you enjoy the launch, and I'll check back with you at the end. Enjoy.
The stages separate at about 2.5 minutes into flight. The second stage has a single Merlin vacuum, or as you hear us refer to it, MVAC engine, and that ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is what will be carrying the AMOS-17 satellite to geostationary transfer orbit.
Okay, I hope you enjoy
the satellite is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which you see right there, the pointy cone at the top of the rocket. This protects the payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent. Once we reach the vacuum of space, at about 2.5 minutes in the fairing as the second stage continues. The second stage has a single Merlin vacuum, or as you hear us refer to it, we will be attempting to recover the fairing house, and that ignites after the first vessel, Ms. Tree. The second stage, known as carrying the AMOS-17 satellite to catch one of the fairing halves in the ship's nets, and then recover the other. The satellite is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which you see right there, the pointy cone at the top of the rocket, which will be after our webcast the payload from so we'll be providing any additional heating and contamination during catches via our social media. The stages separate at about 2.5 minutes in the fairing, and like the second stage continues. The second stage has a single Merlin transporter erector, or TE. That's what we use to hold to roll the rocket out to the pad from the hangar and then raise it to its vertical launch position, as you see there. The TE also routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from the ground systems to the rocket and satellites until F9 goes on internal power and clears the pad. At liftoff, that's what will retract in order to clear the way for F9's ascent.
Good afternoon. I'm John Innsbrucker, the Falcon Principal Integration Engineer at SpaceX, and we're just inside 10 minutes before launch. Good news is we're working no issues on Falcon 9, but we are closely watching the weather. Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the AMOS-17 satellite at T-minus 16 hours and went vertical about 12 hours ago. Now the chief engineer held a technical poll at T-minus 1 hour, and then the launch director held both the propellant load and launch go, no-go polls at T-minus 38 minutes. Now the go, no-go poll covers the 10 people who are counting down the Falcon. They electronically click on go in their online procedure. Now for Falcon 9, we've been loading propellant since T-minus 35 minutes. Falcon 9 uses rocket-grade kerosene, which we call RP1, for its fuel, and liquid oxygen, or LOX, is the oxidizer. It's that cold LOX that's causing the condensation clouds that you see around the first and second stages. Now with fuel and oxidizer on hand, we do need an ignition source to complete the fire triangle. Now for Falcon 9, this is T-tub liquid, which is our igniter. You might see this at T-minus 0 as a green glow right before the engines light and the rocket takes off. Now currently fuel is completely loaded on the second stage. Fuel is scheduled to finish up on the first stage at about T-minus 6 minutes before launch. And meanwhile, liquid oxygen load is continuing on both first and second stages. Now, in addition to the RP-1 fuel and the liquid oxygen, Falcon 9 also uses helium to keep the tanks pressurized in flight. This helps fill the empty volume created as we deplete propellant out of the stages. Helium load began before the webcast went live. We're topping off until about the last minute and a half before launch. Now, engine chill will begin at T-minus 7 minutes. They're getting the team ready in a minute to open up the pre-valves between the first stage propellant tanks and the 9 Merlin engines. This will allow a little bit of cold liquid oxygen to flow into the turbo pumps, bringing them down to a temperature close to that of the super chilled propellant that will soon be flowing through the engines at liftoff. So the Falcon 9's looking good. On the satellite side, the Spacecom team transferred AMOS-17 to internal power starting at T-minus 30 minutes. They completed that at T-minus 15 minutes. They're ready for launch. They're just monitoring telemetry on the spacecraft. The range tells us that they are green, air and sea space are cleared. And the big one is the weather. We had to delay half an hour this evening for launch. Currently, the weather rules are all green, but we're watching everything as we go through the last 7 minutes of the countdown. So right now, all systems continue to be go for liftoff at 23 minutes after the hour.
As we mentioned earlier, tonight's mission is for Spacecom, a satellite operator headquartered in Israel. Today we're launching AMOS-17. AMOS stands for African Mediterranean Orbital Satellite, and the 17 is for 17 degrees east longitude location of the satellite. Built by Boeing, it'll be the most advanced high-throughput satellite providing communication services to Africa and have a life expectancy of over 20 years. Let's get some more details on our customer payload tonight.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff.
We're just inside 5 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. First and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with over 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Stage 1 actually finished loading just a moment ago, and we have also begun chilling of the 9 Merlin engines. We're also getting ready now for the completion of liquid oxygen loading on both stage 1. That'll happen at about T-minus 3 minutes. Second stage will close out at about T-minus 2 minutes. The view on the screen is Falcon 9. The strong back part of the transporter erector still around the vehicle. We're getting ready to open up the clamp arms that attach to the second stage. Once the arms are open, coming open right now, you can see them, we will then begin retracting the strong back. That'll be coming up in about 10 seconds. The strong back will recline about 2 degrees away from the Falcon 9. Beginning motion of the strong back. Now we're using hydraulic struts to pull it back, and at liftoff, those hydraulic struts will pull it farther away as the rocket lifts off to clear the strong back. Another event coming up at T-minus 60 seconds is the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. There are 3 flight computers on the second stage that constantly compare commands and calculations with each other. That way, if any one computer develops a fault, the other 2 can safely continue the flight. So Falcon 9's looking good. The AMOS-17 payload, the Spacecom team, everything continues to be good for them. Currently, the range is tracking no issues. Everything is clear for launch, and the weather continues to cooperate, but we've still got a few minutes to go. So as we've passed just inside T-minus 3 minutes, let's listen in to the countdown nets for the terminal count of Falcon 9 with AMOS-17.
LDCE, this is RC on countdown 1. Be advised, the range has got no-go at this time. Continue with the count. We'll execute a range hold at T-minus 30 seconds if the range does not clear the issue.
No, it got stuck.
Stage 2 locks close out. Gas closeouts.
LDCE, this is RC on countdown. Be advised, we're continuing with the count. The range is go at this time.
F9 is in startup. Stage 2 pressing for flight.
LD is go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Stage 1 pressing for flight.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff.
Vehicle is pitching downrange. AVI power and telemetry nominal. Vehicle is supersonic.
Coming up on 1 minute into flight, we're getting ready for maximum dynamic pressure.
Vehicle has reached maximum aerodynamic pressure.
You've heard the call out. We're through the region of maximum aerodynamic pressure. Vehicle going supersonic as we leave the denser parts of the lower Earth's atmosphere. Falcon 9 trajectory looks good. All 9 Merlin engines are at power. Everything looking good for Falcon 9. We're heading due east from Cape Canaveral, headed to the first of 2 orbits planned for today. Nice view from the onboard camera looking back at the plume slowly expanding as we leave the atmosphere. The plume will get larger as we get out to the vacuum of space. Now today, first stage shutdown is planned for about T plus 2 minutes 45 seconds. We won't be recovering the first stage today, so that leaves more propellant to burn to achieve the required orbit for the satellite. If you compare that to last week's CRS-18 resupply flight to the space station, on that mission the first stage shut down almost half a minute sooner than today. We needed to reserve enough propellant to be able to turn the first stage and return it all the way back to the launch site. Now coming up quickly in 20 seconds, a sequence of events: main engine cutoff, the 9 main engines shut down, stage separation, and then ignition of the second stage engine coming up in just under 15 seconds.
Go.
AVI stage separation confirmed.
We've had successful ignition of the second stage engine. The Merlin Vacuum D engine is up at power. Turbine speed
Stage 1
looks
STS
good.
is saved.
You can see the nozzle beginning to glow red, a tradition
Stage
for
2
the
on
upper
nominal
stage.
trajectory.
First stage has completed its mission. It's falling back to Earth. As we said, we won't recover it. Coming up next, fairing separation out in the vacuum of space.
AVI fairing separation confirmed. Acquisition of signal been needed.
Nice view in the late afternoon. Sun shining on the payload fairing. The second stage has separated the payload fairing around the AMOS-17 spacecraft as we're now in the vacuum of space. Right now, Merlin vacuum engine continues to be on power. Trajectory looks good. Stage 2 is right in the middle of the predicted path. Avionics reports their systems are nominal. So coming up 4 minutes and 15 seconds mark, we are go on Falcon 9 carrying AMOS-17 to the parking orbit, the first of 2 orbits for today.
So just past the T plus 5 minute mark into today's mission for AMOS-17. In case if you've just joined us, we had a slight delay due to weather over at Florida launch site, but we did take off at 23 minutes after the hour. And as you can see on your screen, the stages have separated, and there we have a beautiful shot of planet Earth as the second stage nozzle is glowing gorgeous red, orange, as it's carrying AMOS-17 to geostationary transfer orbit.
Stage 2 on nominal trajectory.
We have confirmation that the trajectory for stage 2 is nominal. Just after the second stage ignited, you may have noticed a couple of pieces coming off from the nozzle. If you've tuned into our launches before, you see that every time. Those are that's basically just a stiffening ring that we place at the end of the nozzle to give it a little bit of structural integrity for transportation purposes while the rocket is still on the ground. Not really necessary once the rocket has taken off and they fall away. The next major event that we are approaching at about the 8-minute and 9-second mark will be the first of 2 second engine cutoffs, or SECO 1. At this point in the mission, the second stage is pulling about 3.5 Gs. You yourself may have experienced that. If you've ever been on a big roller coaster, equivalent to that, the space shuttle encountered about 3.5 Gs whenever it was taking off and re-entering.
Terminal guidance.
So we're less than 30 seconds away from second engine cutoff 1. Like I said before, this is AMOS-17, which will provide internet, phone, and secure communications to customers in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. We're sending it to
Stage 2 RTS is
geostationary
safe.
transfer orbit.
They're shut down.
And we have confirmation that second engine cutoff has occurred and that we are in good orbit. So we're about to enter an 18-minute coast phase, so we're going to take a break, but we'll leave you with an animation that shows where we are in the coast phase. We'll be back at the T plus 26-minute mark for a second stage
Nominal
relay.
orbit insertion.
T plus 25 minutes, 47 seconds since a great liftoff of Falcon 9 from Cape Canaveral. We're getting ready to reignite the MVAC-D engine you can see on your monitor. This is going to be for our second and final burn. Currently, we are chilling in the turbo pump. We're also firing settling thrusters, small nitrogen-powered thrusters, making sure that the fuel and the liquid oxygen are at the bottom of the tank in the zero-G environment. As you can see from the map, we're coming over equatorial Africa. This is the best place to do the burn to change the orbit. So burn's coming up, let's listen in.
And back ignition.
We've got good ignition, chamber pressure is on target. Now this burn is going to last about 1 minute. As you can see from the velocity counter, we're going to add about 2.6 kilometers per second. That's how much velocity we need to put into the orbit to get from the low Earth parking orbit we started from into the final geostationary transfer orbit required by the Spacecom customer. We're beginning to throttle down the second stage engine to keep G-loads on the spacecraft underneath the required levels. Getting ready for shutdown of the second stage engine.
MVAC shutdown.
We've got a good shutdown. Waiting for the orbit call out now.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And the guidance officer over the countdown net has called out a nominal orbit insertion. Looking at the plots, it's a really good looking orbit for the Falcon 9, still carrying the AMOS-17 spacecraft on top. So now that we're in a good orbit, we're going to be coasting for the next 4.5 minutes or so. So we're going to stop live commentary, but we'll be back at T plus 31 minutes, 30 seconds for the final event, the deployment of the AMOS-17 satellite. T plus 30 minutes, 55 seconds since liftoff. We're back a little bit early. We've got a view here from the 2 cameras that SpaceX manufactures and installs on the back end of the second stage, looking at the MVAC-D nozzle from both sides. Now currently we are halfway across Africa between Gabon and the Heart of Beanstalk ground stations. That's where we're getting ready to get telemetry of payload deploy. That should be coming up in about 40 seconds from now. Now currently the second stage flight computer will send a command to the separation band that clamps AMOS-17 to the Falcon 9. The band opens and small springs between the spacecraft and the second stage will open, gently pushing the satellite away from the second stage. Good view of the AMOS-17 satellite from the camera atop the second stage, waiting for payload separation event.
AVI confirm spacecraft separation.
Always great to see the spacecraft floating away from the Falcon 9 second stage. So we've got a good deployment on time. We're in the desired orbit. And with that, we're going to bring our webcast to a close. But it's been a great webcast for the Falcon 9 team. We had a liftoff delayed 30 minutes by bad weather at the Cape, but just before we went on the air, the last of the weather rules went from red to green. The range was ready to support. We counted down and launched at 23 minutes after the hour. First stage did its job before separating. There is no recovery plan for the first stage today. It will re-enter and break up in the atmosphere. Second stage continued on with 2 great burns, first into parking orbit and then into the final orbit.
Expected losses.
Just now we saw the separation of the AMOS-17 spacecraft in the desired geostationary transfer orbit. So again, a great day for Falcon 9 and the AMOS-17 customer.
Thank you to our customer Spacecom, and also to the 45th Space Wing for range safety and the FAA for licensing today's launch. We'd also like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. Follow our website and social media platforms for updates on the catch for the fairing halves, as well as our next missions and milestones. Until next time, have a great night.